you realize that, hey, I'm standing on solid ground here. This is correct. I don't need to be ashamed for living and acting freely. This is just how it's supposed to be, and I'll do it. And if someone doesn't like it, so what? Like, look at Bitcoin, what we achieved in 15 years? I mean, damn. Like, it's now larger than most companies are. It's larger than most fiat currencies are. And it was just a bunch of dudes in hoodies on their laptop. That's insane, right? That is the most mind-blowing, actionable improvement in the human condition for thousands of years, and we just did it.
This episode of the Free Cities podcast is brought to you by Veritas Village. Now, Veritas Village is an off-grid, self-sufficient place for people who are interested in living a normal, freedom-oriented life. You can reduce your reliance on corporations or government systems in your very own energy self-sufficient luxury home with its own water supply, located in a perfect climate to grow your own food. Communities use Bitcoin, and you can also buy your property with Bitcoin as well. www.ecovillages.life/free cities for more info. Please don't forget to mention the Free Cities podcast, and in the meantime, enjoy the conversation.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too.
What is it? My second appearance, I think, on the show.
It is. First one was epic.
Yeah.
Blew my mind.
There was another conference where we were sitting in your very small hotel room. You
Yeah.
did upgrade. It's bigger now.
We were that was the Free Cities podcast when it was just starting out.
Yeah.
We were literally in Prague in a weird little hotel down the side of the bed, weren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
How far we've come. I'm glad you remember that. 'Cause
wonderful.
It's quite exciting, actually. I really enjoy this job. It's kind of making money, kind of. It's like, it's not exactly. Can you maybe just bring that across a bit like that?
Being a podcast is the most ridiculous job, right? Because you have the best excuse to talk to people,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's all it is. It's talking around the fire. It is. It's like the same thing. Like if Neanderthal men realized they could make a living sitting around the fire talking, they'd be much happier. I think they wouldn't always have that sullen look on their face whenever you see them. But no, it is. I honestly believe, mate, that the kind of battleground of ideas it's the new place to be.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when you think about it, if you think about all the places that you could operate in, the physical world, the digital world, the realm of ideas in this day and age is where to be. Yeah. And you putting in your own ideas and hoping that they catch on.
Yeah. Mises was already saying this many years ago, right? That this battle for freedom has to be fought with ideas. That's why he was a prolific writer and author and lecturer, right? So we're just standing on those shoulders of giants.
I haven't done this yet. We've started, but I'm better just do one of those. The reason why I'm so disheveled is because I've just had the most infuriating interaction with normie world in the form of
That's traumatic.
It's not traumatic. It's just like most things. It's like end of Soviet era bullshit.
Yeah.
And it basically involves it starts with me getting the most expensive Vodafone plan I can because I don't want any bullshit. Right. So
just leave me alone. Yeah. Take my money.
It literally
leave
says
me in peace.
Unlimited everywhere. Unlimited, 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 unlimited. Of course, unlimited doesn't mean unlimited. Unlimited data means when I'm in Latvia means 25 gigabytes, which disappeared after 2 days. Yeah. I'm a bloke, and I run my business on the internet. So, and I'm like, so it's called fair use. It's obviously not fair use. I'm not an unfair person. I'm very fair. I'm a very fair person. So me trying to keep bullshit at bay doesn't work. Bullshit is there. I said, is anyone on Vodafone getting unlimited? I've just been on the phone to them. First thing is I get a text saying, you've just run out of data. I'm like, well, on unlimited, I've run out of data. And in the text, it said, if you want to increase your limit, go to this web address. So I pressed it, and it's like, I got no data. I can't go to the web address. Like, it literally directs you to a web address. Obviously, they're expecting you to have Wi-Fi. I don't have Wi-Fi here, funnily enough. I don't know why. This is the first Airbnb I've ever got that didn't have Wi-Fi. So now I'm like pressing the button. It's not going to the page. Oh, my God. Anyway, long story short.
A good future tech for this is called Tollgate. It is a Wi-Fi router whom you can pay in Bitcoin to get online. Right? But the thing is, you're offline, right? So how are you going to pay with Bitcoin for the internet when you're not even on the internet yet?
Correct.
And so the answer is eCash. Right? Cashew specifically. You can make Cashew payments as a sender while being offline. And the receiver is a router, so he is online. So you just paste some eCash and you get internet.
Well, there's a topic of conversation because I use Cashew. I use the Minibits wallet for small payments, right? So, and I don't care to know exactly what I'm doing. I just know that everyone thinks it's really good, and people I trust say use Cashew. But anyway, can we come back to that? I've got to get to the end of my story because basically I had this wonderful morning planned. My wife arrived in Riga last night. So woke up this morning, let's go out for a coffee. I've got plenty of time on my hands. I got a bit of research to do. I'm interviewing Max at sort of 1, so it'd be great, And then basically the whole thing starts crumbling beside me. I got no internet. I can't research you. I can't even talk to you. I sent you that text saying, the last I heard of you was I'm on my way. And basically, people don't realize where I'm recording is in a big commie block. You can't just arrive, see the doorman, say send him up. It's like you have to go in through the kitchens to get up here. And you're on your way, and I'm like, oh no, and I've got no data. I can't get your messages, blah blah blah. And so I've basically done no research at all. Not that we need to do research, but I did want to. I want to know what you've been up to. Because we haven't spoken for quite a long time. I'm not sure I've seen you since Prague, probably over a year ago or something.
Yeah, it's been a while. Right?
But I now am back online. Cut a long story short, I've actually I'm so vindictive, mate. I have told Vodafone I'm leaving, and they've sent me one of those codes to go to port me to another. I just went there. I just went, right, dude, I'm out. This is absolute bullshit. How do I cancel my contract? And like sometimes when you get that irate, they say, oh, here's some data.
You get your fix.
Basically, they're going to lose. I don't know. I've been with Vodafone like 20 years. What have I been spending? 60 a month, 50 a month. That's like 500-600 a year.
That's a lot of Bitcoin.
That's a lot of money. Yeah. Back then, that's a lot of money, right? And going forward, I had no plans on changing from Vodafone. That's another 10 grand. So they're basically, for the sake of, what does 25 gigs of data cost them? Fuck all, nothing.
The marginal cost is really small, right? You have the upkeep of the whole infrastructure that's ballistically expensive.
Yeah.
But once it's there, sending a couple bits, it's fine.
Right. And they are prepared, because I said, can I have some data, please? I've been with you 20 years. You've told me it's unlimited, but it's not. And now you're telling me this is fair use, which, like, I'm one of the fairest people I know. I'm like Mr. Scales. I want the scales to really be fair. So it's obviously not fair use. And you've kind of sold it to me with and they just went, computer says no. And I said, right, I'm out, dude. So they've now sent me one of those codes to port me to another network. So now I've got to find another network. I'm not going to do it today, but I think I'm going to do it. I'm like, no, F you. Like, why are you doing business like that?
Yeah.
Why are you treating your customers like that? And the answer is because, sure, the guy I was talking to on the phone, it's not his problem. He was computer said no. The other guy was computer said no. And all this stuff is like, this is end of an era stuff. Yeah. Like I heard the same story that it was been doing the rounds at this conference about this guy who ordered some knives off Amazon and they arrived at the door and the guy said, you need to prove how old you are. And this is some old dude at the door saying, here I am. Like, do I look under 18? No, I need some ID. And he's like, what do you mean? He said, no, I need to take a photo of your ID. Oh. And he's like, he's a kind of privacy person. He's like, no, just give me the stuff. And in the end, they sent it away. And this is like the kind of shit you see in the Soviet era, like these itty bitty little laws that get more and more tedious and more tedious and more tedious until they're literally dictating how long your fingernails can be and all that stuff.
Yeah. Rothbard would call it a triangular intervention. And so this means that the state intervenes how two free people get to do their business. You're not allowed to buy the knife from this merchant, right, and get it delivered. That's a ridiculous notion. That sounds like terrorism to us.
Yes.
We would like to see some ID to protect the children. This is unfortunate, and there's this intervention cascade. Right? Mises also spoke about this greatly in his book Socialism. Right, as soon as you start with one set of interventions, let's say price control for socialism, or these types of things, then the market fails, or like it stops being nice, and so it gets worse. And then the state, of course, as well, let's try some more intervention, maybe that will fix it, and that just makes it worse, and the only answer is more intervention, and so on, and that leads to nowhere.
And in the end, it almost certainly collapses.
Yeah,
because everyone is falling foul of the rules. So everyone's committing crimes constantly.
A felony a day.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I've always been aware that I break the law, obviously, in little bits and bobs and ways and this, that. But, like take our online safety bill that's just come. That's one step away from VPNs being banned, which is being talked about. Now, banning a VPN is going to make me a bona fide criminal because I've been using a VPN for a long time. Purely for simple reasons, like, I don't really like to know I don't think my ISP has any interest knowing what I'm doing. And I don't want them to sort of sell that data, use that data, release that data, reveal that data. Nothing wrong with that. Simple privacy even. But even the kind of, I don't trust you guys to look after my bank details or my this or my that. And so when that happens, which they're talking about it now, when they start talking about stuff, it's not that.
It's already done.
Yeah. And where else have you seen VPNs banned? What? North Korea. Where else is VPNs banned? Probably China in a roundabout way. They're probably not. You probably get penalized. You
get penalized everywhere. Like these CAPTCHA portals.
Yes,
they're way more prevalent when you use a VPN.
Yes.
Right? They know that you're using a VPN or Tor. And then every business, every website is making your life just a little bit more difficult because there's risk behind it, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the risk is for them to get into trouble.
Exactly.
It's nothing. They're not thinking, this is very risky. They're literally worried that the rule says you can't do that, or the rule says you need to identify who's on your website and send it to us, and if you don't, you're in trouble. And that's basically how they enforce it in the beginning. I think probably in the later stages they start enforcing it on you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when you know it's getting serious. But I'm not even sure. And this is amazing. Look, a bit of plastic literally just came off my water bottle. This is a criminal offence. How did these get through the net? Look, they haven't even got. I suppose it is still attached, but oh my God. Anyway, when they start coming directly for you. And I think it's almost like in the old world, you could do that. You could be an authoritarian and you could steam in with guns, point them at people and say, do what we say. And then in the more contemporary kind of Western world, it's like people would think that was bad. So they just say, right, everyone that you do business with, everyone you deal with, everyone they have to police you. Yeah. And now it's like, I'm dealing with a friendly face. I'm not dealing with the state, It's I don't know. It's getting serious, don't you think?
It is getting serious. It has been getting serious for many years, and the trend is definitely in the wrong direction, right? Like it got worse over the last 10 years, a lot, right? And so unfortunately, it will continue to get worse. The real question is, when does this socialist system fall apart? And I do hope that it does fall apart like the Soviet Union, more with a whimper than with a bang. Right? But war and a lot more destruction is definitely on the menu.
Do you know what though? It's taken me a long time as someone I would think of as quite free thinking, quite inquisitive, it's taken me quite a long time to comprehend that this is a sort of socialist system, a communist system. It's bizarre because and voting and democracy and all these things are kind of communistic in their nature.
Yeah.
I know, but I don't think 99% of people are anywhere near acknowledging that.
Yeah. No, but I mean, read through the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, right? And there's a little list of bullet points with what should be there in a communist society, right? And we have like centralization of education, right? So in Germany, for example, if you want to homeschool your kids, the police show up. Like literally, this happened to many of my friends, that kids got dragged by the police into the school building, right? So that's a thing, right? Then we have, of course, that like the central bank. Name me a country that does not have a central bank right now, right? So those two aspects already. If you have the power of propaganda and the power to print money, then all of the other thing kind of becomes very easy, because the people just kind of do what you want them because you taught them literally, and you have unlimited budgets because you can print it and trick everyone into using that fiat currency. That together is extremely powerful, right? So we're deep down the socialist rabbit hole. We're very far away from a free market.
But people would never think that. People would never think that. I didn't think that for a very, very long time. Look, you look at the, communist empires, and you think, there's communism, that's communism. But I mean, I suppose the sort of owning the means of production and no private property stuff and that. Although you will own nothing and be happy.
Yeah, and like there's a real actionable metric of success of freedom. It was defined by Rayo, an anonymous author from the 70s, and he was saying, what's your mean time to harassment? And in other words, when was the last time you were stolen from? Right? When was the last time someone physically assaulted you? When was the last time you had to ask for permission to use your stuff? Right? And all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, I just had to ask for permission from Vodafone to get my internet back. Right? That didn't happen so long ago.
But it was their internet, I suppose.
Yeah,
theoretically. Yeah. But I know what you mean. Yeah.
Or like you pay taxes on that internet bill, right? You pay taxes on the bubble gun. If you want to drive your car, you need to have the driver license. If you want to start a business, you need to ask for permission to have that business license. The mean time to harassment, if we analyze the intervention of the state, is within hours or days, right? Not weeks or months. So we really are in a situation where the amount of theft is so pervasive that we don't even realize anymore. We're like the fish in water, and completely unaware of the extent of the tyranny that we're suffering through. But once you step out of it, right, specifically, for example, Bitcoin is the perfect example. Once you opt out of the theft of the fiat system, now all of a sudden you realize, wow, this is not just a little bit better, that's like so much better. And we all adjust our life completely around this new phenomenon that we've experienced and move on in a much freer way. And then are baffled of how long could we have used this fiat money without even asking it, without questioning it.
It's interesting coming to Latvia now and obviously being around. Honey Badger is the real cypherpunk kind of gathering, mainstream anyway, cypherpunks. But for me, it's the one place where I do tend to mix more with those people who really do live the principles. And I've got a lot of respect for people whose mindset is what's legitimate and what's illegitimate. Like, someone telling me what to do. This is some guy like wearing a police outfit, and being able to stand in front of that person and consider them illegitimate is quite a power, and it takes quite a lot of power and a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding that you can just do stuff. This meme that's going on, you can just do stuff. You can just not listen to that thing. And this is the place where, in my yearly calendar, if I get to come here, where I actually get to mix with those kind of people. And it's a real skill. It's something that I forget so easily and lose myself in my head. And before I know it, I'm looking for permission or looking for, look, am I legitimate? We've moved to a new area, right? We need to register here to get a doctor, or we need to do this or do that. And then you need to sit back and relax and go, actually, no, I don't. It's something going on outside. I'm a human being walking the earth or something along those lines, or even worse, I'm a spirit just here. And, it's a funny old matrix that's imprisoned us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's propaganda. Propaganda is extremely powerful. Right. It was powerful 100 years ago. It got exponentially better. So to this mind control of making sure people don't ask the right question and that people don't go against the mainstream, it's literally been like carefully designed and implemented starting basically from birth, right? Especially from kindergarten or school. And that's really, really difficult to get rid of. And it actually takes like a deculting, right? We need to de-brainwash people. And that's why ideas are so powerful, right? And you're part of the counter-propaganda machine to instill a new form of way of thought in the minds of people.
I had a conversation in America about 6 or 8 months ago, and it was put very well that if you survive school and you're a freedom lover, you've done incredibly well, because school teaches you authoritarianism.
Yeah.
It literally teaches you the relationship between you and the person in charge.
Yeah.
You know?
This is all based on outcome-based education that was first introduced in Prussia, right? Specifically Bismarck. And he wanted to have obedient soldiers, right? Prussia was a military regime, let's say. So they needed to have frontline soldiers that walk into death without flinching, right? Without questioning. If you get the order, you move forward, and if you die, that's all right, because the body of the army has survived, right? That's scary shit. And that's literally what that system is built upon, with the intent of creating soldiers, right? Now, back then it was for military school. Now it's for everyone. Right? Here's the teacher, he's the authority, he stands in front of you. He knows what is correct. Right? He will tell it to you, and you shall repeat it until you repeat it correctly. Right? And if you don't, then you get punished. First you got hit on the fingers, right? And now you have to leave the room and go for detention or whatnot. But ultimately you do as you are told to. And that's just not a encouraging mindset to explore and to be creative and to be who you actually want to be.
Do you, I mean, when you think about the way it's implemented now, it seems like there's a lot of useful, and this is a horrible way to describe it, but it's kind of true, useful idiots that implement this stuff. Are you someone that believes in a grander plan, or is this just a natural incentive of power to sort of secure itself, look for more power, look for more obedience, or is it something more conscious than that? Do people sit around thinking, I want to control someone else? That's what I kind of mean, I suppose.
I think it's a bit of both. Like there are thieves out there, right? No question. They want to get more money, more capital from others without actually getting their permission. They always have been there. They always will be there, right? The question is what are the systems we utilize, and do they incentivize and make this theft profitable? Because thieves are entrepreneurs too, right? There's a praxeology to violence, meaning that if you have to spend 10 Bitcoin on an attack, on equipment, on time, on fuel, etc., and at the end of the day you earn 1 Bitcoin by stealing from your victim, then you just lost 9 Bitcoin, right? You're no longer profitable, and that means you have less capital than before. Right? And maybe you have so much less that you cannot afford to do the next run. And so thieves need to be profitable. And then obviously thieves are incentivized to decrease their cost and to increase their revenue. And that will naturally lead to some structure where they make sure that this is more towards their favor. Right? So they become in charge of, for example, the school system, and then dictate that no, you should actually hand over your money to the thief without questioning, without resisting, right? Because that's the right thing to do. That's what we do in a civilized society, etc. And all of a sudden you've decreased the amount of resistance, you've decreased the cost of attack, right? And therefore you become more profitable. And that gets iterated like on a free market, right? There's not just one gang of thieves. There's countless thieves who are more or less interoperating and coordinating with each other. But ultimately there's a massive demand for this, and so people figure out solutions to it. The real trick then, and how we make this stop, and that's the cypherpunk insight, is to increase the cost of attack and to decrease the cost of defense. right? Because then we have an economic solution to theft and to slavery. That's literally what ended slavery in America. It was more profitable to work with free people than it was to enslave them, right? You simply made more money by not stealing from them, right? Because they were more incentivized to actually do the work, etc. So the slavery in America did not fall because some politician said, oh, no, we don't do that anymore. It fell because entrepreneurs on the market realized that there is more profit opportunity in collaborative, voluntary interaction than there is with slavery. Right? And the exact same thing is happening now, with the added bonus that we have builders of technologies, of tools, who have now optimized for this metric specifically. How do we make theft more expensive? How do we make using defensive force cheaper? And that's ultimately, cryptography is the prime example of what we've achieved here, of making theft so expensive that it becomes completely uneconomical.
And modern day slaves tend to be people that just work under an inflationary system, I suppose. That's the modern definition of a slave, right?
Yeah, and it's not only the inflation, right? I mean, Germany, for example, right? Many other European countries are the same. There's a 50% income tax, right? Then you have a 20 or 19% value-added tax. Whatever value was added here is a bit out of scope, but we're already at 70%, right?
Is that what it is in Germany?
Yeah. And then when you buy diesel, there's like a 300% tax on that because we're saving the planet, right? If you would buy some tobacco, that's not good for you. So we actually have to punish you with another 250% tax rate, right? So we're getting above 90% easily, just by direct taxation of goods.
You think that in Germany 90% of your income is being taken from you?
Absolutely. Before
90?
Before inflation.
How can it
right?
be 90, mate? How do you live?
That's the thing. Like you actually don't.
No, but I mean, I've heard 70. I think when you add it all up, and 90 just seems like. How do you get like 1 month of the year of your own money? It's
yeah.
I'll just have to believe you, I suppose. But God, that seems crazy.
Yeah, no, it really is crazy if you think about it like this, right? And then we haven't even talked about like the regulatory cost of everything, right? If you want to start a bakery, you need like 500 hours of lawyers to get all the licensing that you need, right? To have the permission properly. You need to invest in all types of weird building constructions that might not actually be necessary for you to provide a good service, but they are required in order for you to do it. And so if we add up all of this cost, it's baffling. It's baffling. Like it's more balls and shackles slavery than it used to be, just by the percentage of what of your work has to be given away.
So okay, let's I need to get this straight in my mind because I've never thought about this before. So take your example of the original abolition of slavery and what made the cost of attack more, and then tell me how the modern day version of slavery gets solved.
So ultimately, if you enslave someone, you need to police him, right? Because if he doesn't do what you want him to do, you need to make him change his opinion and change his actions. So ultimately, for every, 10 slaves that work on the field, you need like 2 guys with guns to make sure they don't run away, to make sure they're not lazy, right? To make sure that they actually do stuff. And do it adequately, not just lazily and half-assing it. Right? So you have costs of 2 guys in order to enforce these 10 guys for doing stuff, right? And these 2 like protectors, they or guards, let's say, they need to get paid as well, right? And funnily, the kind of it's often recounted as the worst kind of slaves were the house slaves, right? The slaves who could live in the house of the Lord. And who in exchange did their bidding, right? These were the slaves who kicked down all the other slaves and made sure that they did not revolt. They were
politicians,
kind of, right? So and these slaves were the most vicious, to according to some accounts, right? Because they could have a leg up on the others, right? They still weren't free, and they would ensure that the others aren't free either. Right, so that's quite sad, and we see, of course, a lot of that happening, right, with politicians, with military personnel, with police, etc. They have a quite good time of telling others that, no, you cannot meet two people in a park bench, right? We have a virus going on. You're supposed to be at home. And this type of intervention is costly, right? Plus you have the unseen, right? The opportunity of what would have a group of free people achieved, right? That's way more than what any group of slaves would achieve, because they don't have skin in the game. They don't have that fire, that creativity.
Here's the problem though, right? The internet made the cost of policing cheap, didn't it?
That's the thing.
Really
like
cheap.
This what I'm saying, like the cost of attack, the cost of defense, and how technology can aid us freedom fighters, it can also aid the thieves, right? Like if we have a massive Dragnet surveillance, as we currently do, right? If nobody has any privacy, then the cost of attack becomes very cheap, because you know exactly whom to attack, when to attack, and what to attack for, right? And then you can make a much more educated economic decision of, will I get my money's worth from this attack, right? You're not going to attack the guy who doesn't have any money because you know exactly that he doesn't have any money. Rather, you focus on the guy who just was productive and sold some stuff and now has capital to spare. If you have a perfect surveillance system, then that makes the profitability of the attack way in your favor.
So the cost of attack on the internet becomes more costly if you employ cryptography. Is that the kind of theory?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the one tool to make those things costly. So yeah.
And like, I mean, let's take encryption as one example, right? Like encryption depends on private public keys, right? So you have a private key that's your secret number, basically, a password that gets you to decrypt stuff. And you have a public key, right, which I can use to encrypt messages to you. In order to create a private key, all you need to do is flip a coin. 256 times, done, you have your private key, right? Your computer can do it 1 million times a second, right? It's basically free, a tiny bit of compute power, electricity, right, which amortized across the entire use of the computer is nothing. In order to create a public key out of a private key, is again just a simple math formula. You need to multiply some numbers and that's it. Again, almost free. But now if I have your public key and I would like to have your private key, all of a sudden that requires such an enormous amount of computation that it's not just infeasible. Like if we would have a computer that could do this in the classical setting, it would consume so much electricity that we would create a black hole. Right? It's like it's just bafflingly how much more difficult it is to get the private key from a public key, right? And now this is an asymmetry, right? And that is part of what makes it so powerful, right? It's literally free and instant for you to create the private and public key. And it's virtually impossible for me to get your private key from the public key, right? And that extends to things like encryption. Now I can encrypt messages to you, so that for me to encrypt it, it's trivial, right? I take my message, I multiply it with your public key, basically, and I have something, a new number that I can send to you, and other people will not have any ability to get to the actual true message, right? It will be, again, infeasibly expensive for them to read that message. But for you, it's again just multiplying that ciphertext number with your private key, and all of a sudden you have a clear text message, exactly what I sent you, and it was extremely cheap for you and me to do this, and basically impossible for anyone else to intervene, right? To make sure that we cannot use this because it's just math, right? Once you know it, you know it, and then also to undo the math formulas that we made, right? So these trapdoor functions are miracle technology. Like the fact that this works in this universe is wild, is absolutely wild, and it was kind of like a gift of God that we have to use in our favor, and that's ultimately what Cypherpunk is about.
Herein lies the problem, though, and I think this is the number one question for freedom lovers right now. What you've just described in the digital realm is pretty much the solution currently, at least, and for probably quite a long time into the future. This is the solution in the digital world.
Yeah.
But we live in the physical world.
Yeah.
Right.
And so do our computers.
Right. Okay. Now, the physical realm is the realm where the search for freedom and privacy is way more esoteric, way more difficult, way more. And I think I've always thought of our movement, the Free Cities movement, is searching for freedom in the real world. You've got the cypherpunk world, or the Bitcoin world, or the Nostr world. This is searching for freedom in the digital realm, and it's quite easy. Actually, it is now, at least, but there's no route in the physical world that's easy. And in fact, I don't actually think there's a definitive solution like cryptography in the real world. And what do you think?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I just like to highlight that all of these beautiful things that we can do in cyberspace, right, these constructs of the mind, they absolutely depend on a secure physical space. Like the perfect example is you want to create a new Bitcoin wallet, you want to send 1,000 Bitcoin into it, right? And so you sit in front of your computer and the computer generates your private key and shows it to you as 12 words, right? So you write down the 12 words and super secure, only you know it, right? Now you can receive and send money to it. Well, but unfortunately over there is a small drone with a telescopic camera like a kilometer away. And it's zooming in and sees exactly what you're doing in front of your computer, sees exactly what the screen is doing, sees exactly what you're typing in. All of a sudden, cyberspace can no longer protect you, right? Because Meatspace was compromised, and everything in cyberspace is anchored to Meatspace. Not just for your backups of your private keys, but literally for the computing hardware. With any computer, basically, whoever has physical access to the computer can do whatever he wants. There are some great advancements in computer science that does not make that so. You can have secure enclaves that even with physical access to the machine, you cannot really intervene or read what was happening. Amazing tech, but that's not really implemented widely yet. And that's a serious problem. And that's why we absolutely do need to fix freedom in Meatspace, right? In the physical reality. And that's why I'm such a massive supporter of your work and the Free Cities movement's work, because we need to have a secure, long-lasting, decentralized alternative to the violence of the state in the physical world. And that's really hard because the state has a money printer and they can literally print tanks and missiles and spies.
I've never heard you put it perfectly, mate. I would have said they print money to make tanks. He's like, no, they print tanks.
That's
no, but it's true.
It's scary.
All right, okay. So let's talk about that then, because creating sort of safety and freedom and privacy in Meatspace is a very, very difficult thing.
Yeah.
I've only nailed down 3 techniques. This has been from 3 years almost of talking about it. You've got 3 ways to do it. One is legal. So you've got the whole legal system, this bit of Meatspace technology that kind of that exists. Well, it exists in the digital realm almost now, but it's there, and it's like an abstract power that you can use to protect your physical space. That's number one. Number 2 is you've got community. So you've got the ability to get everyone on board with your safe place, that they all want to protect it, right? And the third one is that, well, in the case of a free city, you're making, everyone is making so everyone, is that the community one? Everyone's making so much money, a bit like Venice, Venice is such a, or somewhere like Dubai at the moment. No one's attacking Dubai because everyone that's living there is pretty good, and they're all making money and they're all doing things. And so you've got this kind of, no one wants to be the person that attacks this thing.
Everyone makes a profit out of it, right?
Yes.
If we would attack it, we would make a loss.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So you join the profit rather than the loss. Yeah. And you've got these 3 things. You've got defending it, you've got legally defending it, and you've got the fact that it doesn't need defending because no one wants to attack it. Yeah. But there's not much else I can think of. There's no, guns are all included in that, and we've got an example of that right now happening in Prospera in Honduras. We've got this, and interestingly, and you're I don't know how much you know about what's going on over there at the moment.
I'm not sure about the very, very latest work, but the whole drama with the new oppositionists.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that people over there are relatively hopeful and think that not only are the socialist government are back down, and they've already started spinning this new narrative that they managed to stop there were a number of things they stopped. Basically, they said that Prospera is illegitimate and kind of back themselves into a corner, because at that point now they need to basically go in with guns and shut it down. That's what they do. They didn't. And now they started saying, well, we stopped the new occurrence of these places. So they're backtracking to that because they basically realized, obviously, that they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And Prospera was using legal. What they weren't using very well, I mean, legal was their big one, this treaty that they have, which basically allows them to go to a sort of an international court, and they've ended up basically suing the Honduran government for an astronomical amount of money. So that part of the plan worked. It seems to have worked. Where they weren't so strong was in the community, because there was a lot of rumors spread about the whole thing, and there's so much misinformation that they didn't really get on top of. It's a very difficult one to get on top of. And then, of course, there's the fact that, I mean, they've just had a massive new round of investment in there, and in amongst all this, so that people realize the potential to make money, so they're still pumping money in. But what's good about that situation is if you can beat the socialist government, and they're a proper socialist government, they're not like democratic socialists or whatever, then that's a really good precedent that's just been set, as far as I can tell. And, that's securing an independent place.
Yeah.
And it's a small one as well. It's not like a vast place. There's hardly anyone there. And it's, it would be a wonderful, wonderful precedent to be set,
Yeah, absolutely. But as you say, right, it's a small place. It's only one place. It's not going to be enough, right? We need to decentralize, so to say, because the likelihood of any one physical location being compromised is there, right? It's not zero for sure. And so we need to have basically an evacuation plan, right? Because when in direct conflict with the state, oftentimes de-escalation and evacuation is the more profitable way to go. Because either you can stand your ground and fight it out against tanks and missiles, right? And again, they print them faster than you could ever spend your own money on it. So a direct conflict with the state, the cards are not in your favor, right? Plus, you're wasting all of this time trying to destroy the other guy's tanks, when instead you could evacuate, pack up all your stuff, move to a new location that does not attack you, and then continue building. Right? So instead of fighting a destructive fight, we move on and continue creating something more beautiful.
That is the frontiersman attitude, in fact. That's why America was founded, that exact thing. I've often thought about this because I used to think I was a stay and fight guy, and I don't think I am now. I've noticed that, and it's even as I've adopted more libertarian ideas that I've become there's a point where I go, okay, now I'm better off leaving and creating something new.
Yeah.
But this is the problem, because this is what free cities are pretty much. They're frontier cities. They're frontier places. You need a frontier, though.
Mm-hmm.
And frontiers currently don't really exist other than at sea. And seasteading's a phenomenal idea that may have a number of years still to go before the really influential things start happening, or space.
Yeah.
And space is coming. And space will come. I'm not sure it's going to be something I'm going to jump on board straight away, but but these are the only frontiers left, or what? Liberland, or there's one in the desert of Chad. There's a bit of unclaimed land there but no one wants to live there because it's so hot. Or there's Liberland, in Serbia-Croatian border. There is no frontiers. I mean, the internet was a frontier, and that's why it was so free. Until now, they started to police it, and they want to police this, and they want to tell you what you can and can't look at in this new frontier. It's
so maybe we don't necessarily need a frontier. Maybe we just need a parallel space, right? The parallel economy that can be anywhere, right? Because regardless of where you are, regardless of how much state intervention there are groups of free men and women pushing their path forward despite all of the intervention, right? The free market is anywhere. And so potentially we don't really need to have this plot of land with our flag where we stand strong on the hill, right? Because again, that's quite a target. Maybe to go about it more subtly is, at least in the meantime, until new frontiers open up or the old tyranny falls, this parallel system seems for me to be the more actionably doable in the short run.
I think that's a common experience in totalitarian places anyway.
Yeah.
I've spoken to a lot of people, in Czech Republic, and the kind of alternative world that runs parallel to clown world, which is kind of what we have now. We have clown world, and we have our kind of world where everyone knows everyone, and there's transactions that can occur outside of that system, and there's business that can be done, and that is something that's very commonly reported on in former socialist countries. At the end, there's this thing that they're saying on the TV, and everyone's going yes, 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 and then no one's doing it.
Yeah.
When they're not being watched, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And that, of course, is risky because there are informants, there are mules, etc., right, that try to subvert these underground movements, and very successfully so, right? This is not a new thing. The tyrants do have strategies to go against this type of movement. But at least it's something,
I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, do we have any examples, historical examples, where people didn't amass together en masse like that? I mean, arguably, I suppose, the digital nomad sort of revolution, which is a new thing because that's kind of who they are. They don't really have a state per se. I mean, ironically, I went to a digital nomad conference recently, and they were talking about that. They were saying, look, as a group of people, we all there's a couple of things that really unite us all, and that's looking for certain visas, looking for a place to live, a good standard of living, blah blah blah. But we're not a nation. You can't ring anyone up and say, hey, tell the digital nomads to do this, because they could be a powerful group. But I suppose they are one of the best examples of that, because largest examples, and they do feel an identity. Yeah. And because then you've also got the kind of network state type of people, but they're not as real to me. They don't appear to be doing it to the same degree as the digital nomads, who really are out there living in different cities, once every few months moving to another one because they're treated better or because it's a favorite place of theirs, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and here again, like, the internet really made this possible, because we like to have community, right? We want to continue working and continue talking to people to get things done. And without an instantaneous global transfer of information and now money with Bitcoin, this simply isn't possible. So this idea of the digital nomad is a new and very exciting area of design space for freedom fighters.
It's also very costly to attack.
Yeah,
the digital nomad.
Exactly, right? And again, the de-escalation and evacuation is lived. Right, like, as soon as someone makes you trouble, as soon as you have a bad gut feeling about the place, you just leave. Right, as a nomad, the question of where do you want to wake up tomorrow, you actually have to ask yourself that seriously, because you could literally wake up anywhere on this planet in the next 24 hours if you really wanted to. Right, and so why would you choose to wake up in a place where you are under fear and under attack, right, and under extortion?
Well, the reason is probably to do with the reason why we stay long-term anywhere. Family, roots, familiarity, and these are all very strong things.
But for example, like, I think Bitcoin events are the perfect example, because that feels to me like a family gathering. Right? We all know each other. We've seen each other for many years. We know each other's stories. We want to help each other. We don't see each other all the time, but we actually see each other frequently, right? Maybe there's a year or so in between, but there's people that I see like every 2 weeks or something on the next conference.
Well, but you also see them online. I mean,
exactly.
You feel, I mean, I feel very in touch with most people that I only see once every 2 years.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching what they're saying publicly anyway.
Exactly.
And privately, then you get all the good stuff.
Yeah.
But the digital nomad thing, go on, you should say something.
And one super common objection is, I don't always want to move to a new place. And you really don't have to. Digital nomadism works great if you have like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 locations that you really like, and you just travel in a circle from one to the next. Right? You know all the people there, you know the best restaurants, you know the nice spots in nature, and you can build a relationship there across years. And sure, you're not there all the time, but that just means that when you are there, you actually want to experience the place to the fullest.
And arguably, that is the free cities dream.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's almost like what you're describing is the parallel universe of free cities.
Exactly. We need a network.
Within the network, yeah, you're right, actually. I've never thought of it like that. It really is one form of it. I wonder what... Or you might know this actually. Is the state cottoning on to digital nomadism, the digital nomadism in that sense? I know they went through a phase of really trying to attract them, and quite quickly they retracted all that. They didn't really. Lots of places went, yeah, come, and then they were like, no, now we're going to tax you a lot of money, really, really quickly. But there will probably come a time if people carry on moving as freely as possible, and these ideas become more prevalent, because it's something that, like, I'm not even a digital nomad, dude. I live in, like a house, an old house which we own, and we're going to be there for a long time, and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. But when I knew that that I was coming to Honey Badger, I didn't come for 3 days. I booked like 10 days, because I knew I could work from here. And Latvia's cheap, much cheaper than where I live. So the actual cost is not that much different. And I'm not even a digital nomad. So youngsters coming through now have got to sort of like cotton on to this fact on the whole, unless you have a job which is a very geographically specific, you have to stay site specific or whatever. It would seem silly not to at least try that when you're young.
Yeah.
But then... And you know, the reason I know that it's a kind of it's a costly attack, to attack, to tax people, for example, who are digitally nomadic. They're obviously going to try and clamp down on it.
Yeah.
I mean, is that starting already, or have you noticed that? Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh.
I mean, one extreme example is Ukraine, right? A war zone where the state warmongers want to get more slaves to die for them ultimately, and so there's conscription, right? If you're a male adult, you're gonna get drafted, and so a lot of people fled this obviously and switched to the digital nomad life. But then Ukraine stopped reissuing new passports for people, right?
Oh,
so
my God.
if your passport expires or your driver license expires or whatever, you need to come back in order to do it, right? And then they kidnap you. So that's a real thing, right? And
could you sorry to butt in, could you in that moment claim refugee status somewhere, do you think?
well, probably not in the EU because they all support it. Right? Maybe.
Yeah, but do they support conscription? I suppose they do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course they do. And they're seriously thinking of adding this back in most European countries.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, do you mean like not in wartime? Just you need to do, like in Israel, you have to do 2 years of military service or whatever.
This used to be the case in Germany as well. Like you have to go there for a year. Then they stopped that, thankfully. Now they're thinking of doing it again. They will start in a voluntary way. And then if nobody signs up, which most likely will happen, they will say, no, you will have to. And that's not wartime, right? And when wartime comes, absolutely, they're going to draft their citizens. That's what they're there for. That's what the whole Prussian outcome-based system literally was designed to do, right? To have obedient slaves that come to your calling and die for you on the front lines when you so choose.
God, and every now and then I'm on Twitter or something, or you see those horrendous videos from Ukraine or Russia. It's either one side or the other. They're kind of these weird semi-propaganda things, which are basically drones killing people. Yeah. And it's the most depressing, this bit of technology that costs probably $100, flying in to this guy on the floor who's just given up. He's smoking a cigarette, and then it's just, I mean, this is what we've come to. This is, I know war has always been hell, but when you see it like that, it's absolutely despicably disgusting and horrendous,
Maybe that's actually great for us because in the past, bullets didn't have cameras attached. you didn't see that fear and devastation and mode of giving up on the victim. Now with drones, you actually do see it. And I hope that that brings back a little bit of humanity, right? Because it's actually hard to kill someone with your bare hands, right? Not physically, but spiritually hard. With a sniper rifle, that's different, right? You're way more disattached from it, right? And I don't know. With the thing with a drone is you can do it on the other side of the planet, right? So there is certain amount of physical separation, but at least you see the devastation coming close.
Do you know what I heard the other day? I don't know who told me, but it was even more depressing, was that apparently drones that are operated from base are under the threat of being intercepted with sort of radio waves or whatever. I don't know how they control them. So the new thing was just pop an AI in it, an independent AI in it, and send it off on its way. I mean, it just got even more depressing. There's something out there that's job is to hunt you down. You could be anyone. It's going to try its hardest to kill the opposition, which is bad enough anyway. But you could just be some guy walking along the road, mistaken. And that's, that used to be something we would laugh about predicting. Like, this is Skynet. And I know it's not run by Skynet, but this is autonomous drones going out and massacring people and slaughtering people. This is disgusting and evil, and I can't even. I don't know.
Yeah, this tyranny sucks.
It's the abstract
sucks so
nature.
much.
It's the abstract nature of it that's the most disturbing. I hate it when machines do things to living things. It really irks me. It really, because it's just this.
Because someone designed that machine.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was really, when I was young. This is going to sound like a strange story, but it just came to mind then. When I was quite young, I used to go to the library, and sometimes I used to sit in the library and just pull books off the library and just look at them. And I ended up looking through this agricultural book, and in it was, for the first time in my life, it was so disgusting. I saw a slaughter line of, and I wasn't ready for it at age 9, and it was just like chickens hanging up on this thing, going through an automatic system of getting stunned, getting killed, getting their throats cut by a spinning blade. And I was so disgusted by it. I still to this day can't stop thinking about it. This is like 50 years ago, it's still something I think about. And it was that fact that I thought that exact thing. I thought somebody sat down on a drafts board, drafting
for
this
months,
machine,
optimizing
that kills things, and had to, they had to stay with it for all that time, because after things, the spinning disc that cuts their throat doesn't always get it. It misses slightly and just injures them, and I was like, oh my God. This is like, how do people do that? This abstract force that you just send out into the world, and it does your bidding, and it doesn't know about emotion. It doesn't care. It doesn't do that. And that's where, we're getting a long way down that route with humans now.
There's a scary book that talks about exactly that, called Ordinary Men.
I know it.
Insane,
is it the people, the Nazi Germany, the people that killed, were sent out to just kill people?
They were a regular police battalion, basically civilians, firefighters, butchers, whatever. And they were created ultimately, like, got the mission to, hey, we need to exterminate this village, right? And interestingly, on the very first order that was given, the general said, hey, if that's not for you, you can leave, right? And a couple people put up their hands and like, hey, I'm out. And sure, right? You can go. Nobody thinks worse of you. You go to the kitchen, right? Do whatever. And then they started killing, right? And most people stopped the killing after a couple deaths. Like,
it's worth saying this was women and children as well. This wasn't like soldiers. This was, take that woman over there and put a bullet in her head. Take this child over there and put a bullet in its head. Yeah.
And that just escalates, and you get used to it, and there's propaganda dehumanizing the victims, etc. Like, this is real, right?
I think also in that situation, I can understand the emotion behind those guys. If we're a band of brothers all on the same team, and one of us says, "Look, we got to do this," you kind of default to your band of brothers. Right, let's do it. It's going to be horrible, but let's do this. You forget that this is a person. You think we have got to do this. We've got to suffer, because you will. You'll suffer intensely forever. Basically, the person at least that you killed dies. They don't carry that memory with them. But I can understand the power that drove those people to do that. And then after you've done it once, I can imagine that you could probably do it again. Once you've committed that, that taboo.
Yeah.
Once you've done that taboo, it's like, whatever, bang, whatever, bang. Because same thing happens to me when I have to resist something. I'm fine as long as I resist it forever. The moment I go, all right, just one, then it's 100. You know what I mean? Like, because you devalue that moral stance that you just took.
Yeah.
And obviously the killing of innocent people is the ultimate taboo, I would have thought. I don't know, there may be more, but I don't know. It really, we really are entering some bizarre times. The weird thing is, many more good people exist than bad. Many more. I would hazard a guess it's like 95.5, 99.1%. I don't know. And yet we still end up in this situation, which is really bizarre. We're a strange species.
Yeah.
When you think
definitely.
about it.
I think there's some very small percentage of actual psychopaths, right? People who just don't have the empathy, don't care, they'll kill if they need to, right? and are fine with it. And then there is a much larger percentage of people who get easily influenced by psychopaths and who do what they say, right? And who just need that authority to tell them, no, it's all right, you should do that. And that is a scary large percentage of number. And that's where propaganda becomes so dangerous, because they're influenced, right, by whatever propaganda is out there, and then go with it. And I would say a minority of people actually would resist, a compelling psychopathic authority telling them to do bad stuff.
Do you know what? Something I've been thinking a lot about recently. You know the meme that, if you lived in Nazi Germany, you would have been a Nazi. That's quite a common meme, isn't it? And people like myself think, I won't do that. I wouldn't have done that. I would have been the guy defying it. And people say, yeah, but would you? Do you know what I'm noticing happening, which is absolutely crazy and bizarre, is when you look at the vilification of Israel and Jewish people. I don't know whether you've noticed it, but it's becoming much more of a meme again, and when you look, now you get to look at it as that person. You really do. Like when you're online and you look at some propaganda saying, something in Palestine, Israel, and it's really pro-Palestinian, and it's showing Israelis knocking on people's doors and, and taking property and stuff like that. That's the moment that you are now being tested as, that's the propaganda that's deciding whether you go, fuck 'em, they're the bad guys, or they're the bad guys. It's really interesting, because you really do get to test your ability, because I've noticed there's a massive, I don't know whether it's just on my social media or what, but it's back. Yeah. The vilification of Jewish people, for example, appears to be back. There's lots of people coming out quite openly and saying this, that, and the other, and there may be truth in what they're saying. There may not. I don't really know. But what is happening is you're being offered an opportunity to vilify a whole group of people. And are you taking it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely fascinating, because when you think of things like, Nazi Germany, you think, well, when's that ever going to happen to me? Right, it's happening now. It's happening in the internet. Yeah. The internet is the nation in which that thing is happening. What are you doing? Who are you? It's unbelievable the times we're living through. It really is bizarre what's going on, But
Yeah, and you know, like it extends to just regular like European nations, right? Like because like we know that printing money is bad, right? We know that using printed money is bad as well. And whenever you pay someone with printed money, you're continuing that Cantillon effect, right? You're stealing from all the people who received this newly created money after you. It's still, we all do it, right? We know that all the taxes go to fund wars and pedophiles and whatnot, and we still do it, right? It's just a very easy excuse to keep proliferating this system of theft and slavery. And most people don't care, right? Most people don't care enough to do something about it. For most people, it's just way easier to just go along with the mainstream, right? And that includes radicals, right? Like, I mean, I'm pretty radical about this. I still use fiat sometimes, right? Like, if you were really like consistent about it, I could be much more radical, but it's hard, right? And not convenient. So there really is. It's hard to when you're in it to stop the bad things that you're doing. That's hard work.
The convenience is the word. It's a really it's the word of our time, isn't it? Convenience. It's like we are in the most convenient time in history, probably. I mean, you can literally sit here, press a button, and a car appears and takes you places or delivers food to you. I mean, we've gone. I get that probably if you look in deep into the psyche of the human being, you realise that the desire for convenience is a good desire. It's the desire to save energy, almost, isn't it? It's like, and when you're a Neanderthal, you don't. If there was a machine that killed wild animals, so you don't have to strangle them with your own arms, of course you're going to take it. But we've just created this world. We've gone so far. I mean, I really don't know what the future holds anymore. I used to have a bunch of ideas about where we were going, and there've been such radical changes recently in things like that. I mean, take convenience to its natural end. It's AI and robots basically doing everything for you. And at that point, you have a choice. Do you let them? And what happens if they don't let them? You know, like, where does it, you know, are you a fan of AI? And I mean, do you even think AI is a thing? I know a lot of techie people who just say, look, it's good, but it's not what you think, you know.
I mean, AI is definitely a buzzword, right? If like we think, for example, with coding, right? The code that actually runs on the machine is called like assembly, right? It's just ones and zeros that come in. Humans cannot really read that. So we use programming languages that compile into assembly, and those programming languages are much more human readable. They're like English words in there, right? With some weird syntax and stuff, and the semicolon has to be exactly in the right place and this type of stuff. But ultimately, humans don't code in assembly. And to a large extent, I think large language models are an extension of this, because now you can code not in a programming language, but just English, like verbal, logical English, compiled into source code now, and that compiles into assembly now. So I think we've just walked up on the stack of making it easier to build code per se, right? If we're looking at LLMs just for coding, and that I think is incredible. Like even a bloke like you and me can now write code that does something that we wanted to do. So that's really exciting, especially because that now increases the number of people who can build freedom tech, right? Like I can build freedom tech now. That's ridiculous. I never really programmed, right? I never wrote a line of code other than like some little bash script or whatever.
I just got to butt in there for a second. But that's not intelligence, is it? Like you say,
Exactly.
That's just coding.
Yeah.
Like all it is. Do you like I started my coding. I'm not a coder at all, but when I was young, I coded in BASIC. Do you remember? I don't know. Are you old enough to know BASIC?
Yeah.
Right. And I did it on a ZX Spectrum. I don't know whether you know that computer. It was like a 48K computer it was. There was a 24K one and a 48. I had the 48K. Right. But the point was that you were using a language to make the computer do something. So using English to make the computer do something is not some crazy.
It just got more convenient.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But it's not even a crazy advancement. It's basically just teaching a computer to convert English to code.
Yeah.
Right. So is that what you think AI is, or is it bigger than that?
That's a big part of the current technology, and I think the most exciting one, because like code is either correct or it isn't. Like either it compiles or there is a bug. So we can get really, really good at optimizing the large language model to write great code. And so there was massive improvements in the last, 5 years. And it will basically be perfect in the next 5 years. Like any code that you want to write, you will get it from English on the first shot all the time for basically free, or like compute.
You reckon in 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. We're almost already there. Like there's a website called Shakespeare.xyz or something, or .diy, whatever. And it's a website with a chat interface, and you type in whatever Nostra client you would like to develop. And literally 5 minutes later, you have a website that people can use where they can log in with their private keys, right, and start posting messages and whatever nuance you want, right? That's here, right? And it costs you like, I don't know, $10 an hour to use it, right? And that will, it's so buggy. The softwares there aren't perfect, but in 5 years, maximum, that your phone will be able to do it.
I designed my own app. It's already been designed, but I just wanted to see. I wanted to see if it could do it, and it did. I designed a calculator that is basically an interface for private things I want. Nice. So if you type the right code into it looks like a calculator, and you can use it as a calculator. But if you type a certain number in, you get to an encrypted box full of secret things and stuff. Yeah. And it did it pretty much first time. I had to change the UX a little bit. But it is quite amazing.
That's wild, right? And then, so on the other hand, we have, for example, robotics, right? Robotics made also in the last 5 years an insane amount of progress. Like if you look at robots 5-10 years ago, they could barely stand and keep themselves balanced, right? Now they do backflips and cartwheels, right? So and they can run fast. Now they're still incredibly inefficient, consume an insane amount of electricity, right? And all of this. But in 5 years, they won't, right? They will get extremely efficient. We can engineer this. Humans are really good engineers. And we can engineer the killing machine to work like 99.9999% of the time. And the same will happen with robotics. And then we put large language models into the robots, and all of a sudden we can talk to them about anything and have deep philosophical conversations, and they can code for you, right? That's wild, right? I'm not sure if that is artificial intelligence, but I guess if you would ask any researcher like 10, 20 years ago if we would have this in the future, would you say that we have reached the singularity in artificial intelligence or whatever? They probably say yes. But now that we're here, doesn't really feel like it. Right? There's still a lot of stuff that isn't really there. John Vervaeke is really good on this topic, and I think one of the aspects that these AI models cannot do is have good taste, right? To decide what to do and what not to do, right? To make this value judgment. They will do whatever you put on the input side, right? It's just an algorithm that returns you an output. But the question of what should I put in the input side?
Do you know what really helped me understand it was someone said, somebody said, look, go on to the best AI you've got and ask it to generate a picture with all the clocks saying 4:20 or something. And it comes back with a picture of all the clocks, but all the clocks are set to 4:00. And the reason is because most clocks on the internet are set at that time because that's what looks best when you sell a watch, right? So that shows you they have no understanding. There's absolutely no understanding there at all. It's purely what's most likely to be the correct answer to what I'm being told. Yeah. But that, I wouldn't say that's intelligence. Really.
It's just incredible how far this goes if you scale it up. I think that's the very surprising thing that researchers didn't really get of, hey, the simple prediction model, right, of what is the next word, what is the next pixel, right? We just need to increase compute power in training, inference, and so on. And we'll get outcomes that are surprisingly good.
But is that how intelligence works, do you think?
No, probably not, right? But maybe it does.
I don't know, yeah.
Right? I mean, and that's kind of the crazy thing of like you as a baby, right? You can learn language just by observing it. And it seems likewise computers did that. They just observed language. They just observed pictures. We didn't tell them this is the grammar written out. These are the rules, right?
But there's a visceral feeling of understanding, isn't there, when you look at a picture? There's a difference between generating a picture based on likelihoods and understanding that's a fat cow or something, and isn't there?
Is there?
I don't know.
I don't know either, man. That's really deep questions.
I don't know. Well, it would be sad to think that all we're doing is when we're thinking and when we're conscious, it's just like error correcting, or like it would be a sad insight into human intelligence. I think to think that it's like a guessing game. It's a bit like hashing in a way, isn't it? It's like you chuck as much compute at something until the correct result comes. And the way you understand the result is getting feedback from your teacher or something, I don't know. Maybe we are really that brutal as a species, and there's nothing deeply,
What is impressive is how energy efficient we do it. That really is something. If you compare the energy consumption of the human brain and of like an AI supercomputer GPU cluster, it's insane. Like these machines are so inefficient at the moment that there's no short-term path where we can get to the same efficiency as the brain anytime soon, for sure.
Do we know how the brain computes? Is it something like quantum? Something like, what's it called? What's the next iteration of computers? The one that everyone says is going to break SHA-256?
Quantum computing?
Is it quantum computing? Yeah. Is that how we think then? Is that?
I'm not sure.
Certainly not how I think. My brain's all over the place. I don't know. Yeah, I at the moment, and like I say, my theory at the moment is AI is intelligent if that's how we think. If that's literally, we just don't know it, that we are way advanced down the line, but the human mind began life in the same way. Like, you imagine language began like that. You and me have no language between us. So what we do is we make sounds to each other and we look for the response to see whether it works. So if I do that, or if I'm like pointing and you move that way, I think, all right, that's pointing because it works. And AI is kind of the same, right? It's looking at everything that's ever been done, and from that predicting what should happen next according to like what it's computing, like, so maybe we're just really simple beings,
Yeah, might well be, but I think out of simplicity comes a lot of beautiful complexity on top. Right? So there's not much nuance if you zoom in close enough, right? Like DNA turns out to be super simple building blocks, but what you can do with it is wild. Right?
Yeah, I'm at a loss with all that stuff. Something I wanted to talk about, actually, and you almost certainly already know this, but I discovered this for the first time yesterday, and it really blew my mind. I was supposed to be interviewing Giacomo Succo yesterday, but he didn't turn up, whatever. But I did some research to sort of, I was thinking, what are we going to talk about? Because I want to talk about freedom. And he'd done a really interesting talk about freedom for Plan B Forum. And he explained something to me on this video that I'd never heard of before. And it was to do with Lockean theory, the Lockean theory of ownership. So John Locke says, like homesteading, if you go to a place, a frontier, that's not owned, let's say, it's just nature, or it's just nothing, whatever, and you add your labor, it becomes your property, right? You know about this, obviously, right? Now, Bitcoin's basically the most perfect example of that. You have, and I can't believe I've lived this long and not thought that you have the miner basically has this frontier of nothing, adds work, creates the Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin is property.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, why did no one ever tell me that before? That's the best way to explain proof of work and ownership and why Bitcoin is perfect ownership.
And I think on top of that, similar applies actually to private keys, which I think is even more mind-blowing, right? Because the private key is just a number. It's literally a number, right? Numbers are not scarce. If I tell you number 4729, I didn't lose it. I didn't give up control over it. You got a copy, right? So there is not really ownership in ideas. Stefan Kinsella is fantastic on this. His book Against Intellectual Property, great read. So he's basically saying ideas are not scarce, therefore we don't need to allocate our resources because we can just copy it. Therefore we don't need property rights. Therefore there is no exchange, there is no IP.
With ideas, though.
With ideas specifically, right? And that idea includes, the number, whatever your private key is. But and that's what my new book actually is about. That when the ideas itself cannot have property rights, but access control or coordination of these ideas, there are scarce aspects in here. Like if I have a secret, like my private key, right, then I can exclude you from knowing this private key by not telling you the secret, right? So there is a rivalrousness. Either you know it or you don't. And it's all in my hands because I'm the only one who knows the secret. Right? That is a scarce aspect. And that behaves like a property right? Like if you would hit me with a $5 wrench until I'd give you the secret, right? Then ultimately that would be unjust acquiring of the access right to this information. Right, with physical coercion on top of that, but ultimately you're trying to get something that I don't want to give you, and so that's a violation in property rights. So I actually think we homestead not just land on the frontier, not just Bitcoin as a miner. I think we actually homestead private keys as well, right? And then we do have the power to open up what we've homesteaded and make it a public good simply by telling others about it, and then this secret becomes worth less. Right? If a secret is worth a lot if it's only kept in the mind of one person, because then he has exclusive ownership of it. But when it is shared with others, right, then some things that we could do before are no longer valid, specifically in cryptography. Like if I am the only one who knows my Nostr private key, I can make a post and you can be very sure that this comes from me. If I would send my private key to someone else, all of a sudden you no longer have these assurances. So when we are in this uniquely homesteaded concept of private keys and ideas specifically, where only one person knows them, a secret, right, then cryptography works. Right? And as soon as we have the drone flying over you as you're making your backup, that's where it breaks apart.
What blew my mind about what Giacomo said, though, was that it implies that John Locke's theories of ownership are a real naturally occurring thing, because in the digital world of Bitcoin, the only way to create private property is to add your work to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's literally blown my mind, because when you think about, John Locke's theories have given rise to property right legal spiel all over the world, really, haven't they? But when I thought about it before, I thought, this is just a guy, this is a philosopher who's had some ideas, and it's become part of, the way we work and the way we do business and the way we have contracts and all this kind of stuff. But the truth is, his theories on property are like physics; they just exist. That's amazing, mate. Yeah. That's absolutely amazing.
That's why I'm such a huge fan of praxeology, right? Because it's evident, it's self-evident, right? We assume a couple things, like we assume humans act, right? That was Mises's grand assumption, like the action axiom of humans act purposefully, right? We have a problem, and then we strategize on how can we allocate our resources available now so that the problem is gone in the future. And then we act and we manifest a temporal change of solving a problem that we had, not just for us, also for others, right? If from the starting point, we can deduce a bunch of stuff on top, right? And so Mises went incredibly far with deducing economic reason out of a simple axiom of humans act purposefully. And then we get property rights, right? That's the thing. Like self-ownership is a conclusion of this very obvious starting point. And the thing is, it's a self-evident starting point. Like if you would tell me that, hey, I am not acting, like I cannot act right now, right? I'm not acting purposefully. Well, you're just forming the words, right? That actually try to convince me that you're not acting purposefully, but that itself is an action. So it's this tautology where you cannot really deny it. Hoppe added on top of this the axiom of argumentation, right? Also quite similar. Of humans have the ability to, with reason, come to the truth, right? And to argue and to try to convince the other person of that said truth, right? And from this point, Hoppe argues that we can actually deduce an ethics, right? He comes to the conclusion that property rights are not just a value-free logic from action. It's inherent in saying basically what ought not to be done. Right, so you shall not steal is a objective rationale, a response or like a conclusion from the action axiom and the argumentation axiom, both applied. Right? And then what I think the third addition to this trilogy of axioms is from Eric Voskuil, a contemporary economist and Bitcoiner, who introduces the axiom of resistance, meaning a system can be designed to resist external control. Right? We can have a system that, and if the user resists the attacker, he will be secure. Right? And that allows us to build technologies that enshrine this property right in reality in an unfuckwithable way. Right? Cryptography is perfect. Like if you resist the attacker and you do not share your private key, then encryption is secure and bulletproof and cannot be violated. And so all of these three things together, I would say, is a proof that freedom exists. Freedom is a good thing, and we can engineer freedom into existence. And that's wonderful.
That's amazing, mate. I mean, I'm just astonished that I kind of only just having these thoughts that even that the idea of property rights might be as natural as 1 + 1 = 2. You know, like it's encoded into the framework within which we live. And you know, like it's really interesting because I had a great discussion with a space scientist who it was like about a year ago, and we were talking about Mars. And when you get to Mars, who's going to own Mars, right? Because it's true. Who's going to own, when Elon gets to Mars, who's going to own, and the UN in the 60s came up with an agreement that nobody owns Mars. In fact, they said nobody owns the universe, I think, outside of the Earth. Typical communists, right? It's like they do, right? But the truth is, and he said this, he said, look, it's the John Lockean principle. If you get to Mars first and you build a city, of course it's yours. You know, it's not anyone else's. That's theft. But it's really it was just really mind blowing to realize yesterday, like morning, that this isn't some made up idea. This is an idea that it's been discovered. It's like a bit of physics that got discovered, or a bit of maths theory that got discovered.
It was always there. We didn't just really know how to phrase it and how to look at it. And then some guys just come and put the reality into verbal thoughts that just make sense, that adequately describe it.
Well, in the case of property rights, the digital realm offers you the possibility to create like the purest form of property. Because property is quite an intangible thing, really, isn't it? When you actually talk about what is yours. Yeah. But in in the digital realm, property is a very specific thing. And I'm not even sure that say, take Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin's not property, really. But your ability to access it is the property.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what is that? What is that? That's like...
Well, in my book, I call it coordination.
Mate, what's your book? I didn't know you had a new book. Is it written and published already?
Well, kind of. So it's called The Praxeology of Privacy. And the idea of the book is to bridge Austrian economics, right, praxeology, with cypherpunks, crypto anarchy, and privacy, right, and to make that synthesis. Because I first fell down the Austrian rabbit hole. Like, I'm an economist first and foremost, right? Later, I discovered software and freedom tech and technologies, right? And that turned me into a cypherpunk, right? And so I would like to bridge that gap and to show that there is incredible support between those two ways of thought. So far that, like, privacy, Mises, Hoppe, Voskuil, right? They assume privacy to be the case, right? If you want to act purposefully, you need to have a private space for your mind to come up with your decisions, right? If that private space is not there, then we don't have purposeful action, actually. Things turn into behavior, right? If someone else can spy on you and see what you're thinking, and he can interfere with you before you make your decisions, then you're no longer for yourself deciding on how to act. You're behaving according to someone else who has told you. And so action, argumentation, resistance, they presuppose that privacy exists. And I think that's a powerful realization. And then on top of that, we can actually build systems of interaction, both in Meatspace as well as in cyberspace, that follow economic reasoning, that follow economic laws, right? So, like, for example, homesteading a private key, right, to later use to encrypt your communication. You're not claiming ownership in the number itself, but you're claiming ownership in the access right to that information, right? And so this opens up a large amount of coordination markets that I think in traditional Austrian literature has been dreadfully underdeveloped. Stefan Kinsella's Against Intellectual Property is probably the main book that covers this quite well. And then the cypherpunks are not bullish enough. Like, they don't understand of how fundamentally deeply correct they are and the technologies that they build are. So we need that bridge. That's the book.
Privacy and property. It was almost like privacy is the...
That's why it's called
privacy
private
is
property.
The property. No, privacy is the property, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the property isn't the thing, it's the access to the thing.
And deciding what to do with the thing.
And privacy is kind of stopping people having access.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Eric Hughes defines privacy as the ability to selectively reveal yourself to the world. That's a choice. That's you choosing what to say, when, and to whom.
Do you think that anything to do with the reason why privacy is such a bad word at the moment, do you think that's anything to do with people trying to... That's of course it is. That's the communism versus individualism. That's the battle that goes on.
It's private versus public.
Yes,
right.
It is.
A private sovereign individual versus the public common good.
Yes.
Right. This is fundamental at the pivot point between freedom and slavery. A slave does not have privacy. Right. A slave has to tell the master what he has done, otherwise he gets whipped until he tells him. Right.
It's fundamental, isn't it?
It is extremely fundamental.
But it's probably as old as we are as well, and it's probably a cycle that will continue forever.
Yeah.
It's just, what side are you on, isn't it? It's like, who are you? Are you the collectivist or are you the individualist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I think it's just clearly articulating these everlasting truths. And seeing if this is actually a correct articulation thereof, and then adjusting your behavior to be in accordance with what we know to be true, right? And I'm pretty convinced at this point that property is a thing, right? Like, you own yourself.
It
full
is.
Stop.
It is. I think cryptography and Bitcoin proved it.
Yeah.
It's proven, and it's also proven that the way to create property is to add work to it. Proof of work. It's so amazing. It's so amazing that someone in the John Locke was like 1700s or something, just realized this, because he didn't have a kind of, I mean, all he had was what it felt like in real life. That's mind. Because it's not intuitive to think that just because I add my labor to this piece of land, it's now mine. I suppose it becomes more intuitive when someone comes to take it, and they're like, what did you do? Well, I'm now just, this is a separate thing. I'm now just bigger than you. This is the land is now mine, not because I toiled on the land, but because I'm bigger than you. And it's my mind it's just been blown a bit more, actually. I thought about it yesterday and I thought, that's incredible. I'm just realizing now it's deeply incredible, that as an understanding.
And it's a difficult understanding to reach, and it's easy to make mistakes there. Like, Locke made a lot of mistakes, right? Menger cleaned up some of his mistakes. Like, Locke still assumed that value is intrinsic to the good itself, right? So did Adam Smith, right? Like, actual Marxism is in line with Adam Smith's thoughts, basically, right? Like, Adam Smith made mistakes that, if consequentially applied, leads to Marxism, ultimately, right? So that's where Karl Menger comes in with subjective individualism, right? Or subjective value theory and individualism as a methodology, right? And still, Menger made mistakes that Mises fixed, right? In terms of time preference, for example. Rothbard makes mistakes, or Rothbard fixes some of the inconsistency of Mises. Like, Mises was still a statist, right? Rothbard is way more radical in his anarchism, right? And Rothbard makes mistakes that Hoppe fixes, and Hoppe makes mistakes that Voskuil fixes, and so on. It's really, really difficult to come up with a proper, actually correct statement, but it's not impossible, right? And you might not have a fully correct Magnus Opum theory, but some parts of those are correct, and then you just have to be careful to not apply the mistakes continuously, right? Which certainly happens and will probably lead to some suffering, but ultimately, when we're serious with ourselves and we don't lie to ourselves, we realize that some of these things are actually correct, and it's scary. Like, if to realize that, like, freedom is correct, the state is evil, right? That's a scary thing, because it literally subverts hundreds, thousands of years of propaganda.
It's not scary. I think sometimes it's hard to act on an intuition or on a feeling, but on a provable theory like that. And I know all theories are falsifiable potentially, I suppose, but really things like that do help. Like, if you know those things, you carry their abstract power with you into your interactions with the world.
Yeah,
you really do. You know,
and to some extent, you're just not ashamed anymore to be free.
Yes.
Right? Like, you realize that, hey, I'm standing on solid ground here. This is correct. I don't need to be ashamed for living and acting freely. This is just how it's supposed to be, and I'll do it. And if someone doesn't like it, so what?
Yeah. It's justifiably a reason to exist in that state, in that way, and that is really powerful. I mean, that is the power of abstract ideas that can propel human beings to stand strong. It's not even that it makes you angry and to want to fight. It's the opposite. It's like standing your ground. It's like when something comes at you, you just stay as you are, because you believe so deeply in this. In who you are and what the ideas that you hold. It's really amazing, mate. Do you know, I never thought about I never thought about that before. It's weird. I'm 54. I've been alive a long time, and
you've been interested in freedom for a long time,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So that just shows you the stuff is unintuitive, or maybe like. Maybe that's part of the intelligence, is that humans are so good at ignoring stuff.
What it is, though, is it's like I didn't think I didn't realize how powerful it was. I didn't realize how powerful it was. That's all. It's like if you told me 1 + 1 is 2, and I go, yeah, I know, and then someone comes in and says, no, 1 + 1 is 3. I'll fight that battle if they're not insane. Obviously, it's very easy to fight that because you're like, dude, I'm going to win. I'm definitely going to win. You know, probably not actually.
I was about to say, I met a guy who was very, very confident that 1 + 1 is actually 3.
Come on, I think I read about this. What is the theory behind it?
I have no idea.
No, but there was a guy that went on. I can't remember how he justified it. It was something to do with negative numbers as well, and abstract maths, you know. I don't know.
It all sounds very confident, but then probably if you get an actual mathematician to argue with him, it will get confusing very quick. That's probably the gist of it. I don't know. Real like foundational mathematics is weird.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, I think at some point everything just collapses as well, doesn't it? It's a bit like physics. You know, you can learn a bunch of stuff, but then at some point, it's all wrong. You know, the theory is, it's almost like the theory is it's all wrong. You know, the theory is there's no theory.
Well, there's the map and the territory is not the map, and vice versa, right? And we're trying to reason about and articulate this crazy reality that we find ourselves in, and obviously words don't do it justice. We probably need way more bandwidth. Like we probably need some terabytes of data being between us so that we get a more serious grip on the situation. So we don't know all that much.
What else is going on in your new book then? And where can people buy it yet, or is it still?
So right now I'm mainly asking for review. Right? That's the main thing. So it's version 0.1.0 is released. I started writing this like 5 years ago, and then I didn't do anything for like 4.9 years.
I get that, though. I get that. I really do. You know, that journey into a book, especially when it's about this kind of stuff, you can't just say, right, this morning I'm going to write the chapter. You might need to go and spend days hiking up a mountain and just meditating the whole way before you even get anywhere near what you want to talk about. And then you got to find the words. You know.
So the title came to me first. Like the Praxeology of privacy. I was like, someone needs to write a book about that. And nobody did for all those years.
I'm not sure I even really understand it. Can you explain praxeology to me twice? And it's one of those things where you go, okay, but then what is it? But I still don't really know what it is.
Well, it almost literally it means the logic of human action.
Yeah, but that's not a thing, is it?
Well, it's like what can we deduce? What can we say with certainty based on the fact that humans act? Right? Like what is the consequences of human action? Maybe one interesting way of saying is like a very praxeological statement is, if we introduce a minimum wage, that leads to unemployment. And that is a logically correct statement, right? Once we define our terms and assumptions, etc. But ultimately, if we forbid merchants or entrepreneurs to pay people less than a certain amount, then they will simply not hire them because that person has a marginal benefit to the business that is less than the marginal cost, and therefore it's not profitable, right? And so people will not get employed.
But why is that praxeology? Why isn't that not just... So I mean, it's almost like you don't even put a word on it. It's just logic, right?
Well, but there's different types of logic, right? And maybe one other way of differentiating is, and I'm not even sure if that's correct, but that's how I have it in my mind, is that so praxeology is about the consequences of human actions, right? Like what happens when we act in a certain way. And psychology, for example, is the reasons for acting in a certain way. Like why do people act this way? Rather than what is the consequence of whatever particular way people have acted. And so this maybe praxeology also is so weird because there was like the war of the methods, Mises called it, der Methodenstreit, where it really 100 years ago, it was not clear how should we think about economics, right? There was the historicism out of Germany, I think. Yeah, exactly. Who was basically, well, we can deduce historical activity. We can deduce economic laws based on historical activity. Right? It has always been like this, therefore it will be like that in the future.
Right, sorry, that wasn't Karl Popper, was it?
I think it was Popper.
Well, he wrote a book called The Poverty of Historicism, didn't he? Which is that you can't prove anything. You can only disprove it. Which is slightly different to what you're talking about, I think. But anyway.
Yeah, and Mises basically said that no, humans act, right? So, or in other words, maybe humans act differently, right? We're ever changing. It's not like we pick up a rock, we drop it, and it falls with the same speed at the same time all the time, like physics, right? Economics is not really like that because humans do weird stuff all the time, right? We're not really predictable that much, right? So instead of seeing how things were in the past and then trying to figure out how they're going to be in the future, let's instead come up with some foundational assumptions, right? Axioms like human action, like time preference, etc. And then from there on out, we simply use logic, right? Like and logic similar to as mathematics or physics, but not applied to these innate objects that just behave, but applied to human ingenuity and creativity to come up with different solutions in different situations.
How do you describe then something like property rights, the theory of property rights?
So the gist is humans act, meaning we use our body to and other resources that we have available to solve our problems, to remove our uneasiness, as Mises would say. And for this, we need to have control over scarce resources like our body, right? Like, clothing, like food, like fire or fuel, etc., in order to solve these problems. And the thing is that humans have an infinite amount of problems. We're really a troubled creature. And there's a lot of humans, right? But resources are limited and scarce, meaning we can only, if we have a steak in front of us, either you eat it or I eat it. There's a potential conflict over who can allocate these resources according to his own problems. Right? And so we need to address this conflict in any shape or form, right? And there's a couple different ways that we could go about it. We can do it like the UN. Nobody owns it. Neither of us gets to eat it. It will rot on the table and we both starve. So that's not a great solution.
Yeah, but when they say nobody owns it, they mean we own it. Basically.
That's the second thing of both of us, the plebs don't own it, but there's a priest over there, right? And he's a special human. So he actually owns it. He gets to decide who gets it, right? And, he chooses whichever of us gets to eat it, or maybe he just takes it all for himself, right? So here we have a priest class, different quality of human. And that doesn't seem right. Right? This guy is just a dude like you and me. So we would like to have a rule that is defensible across all the categories, right? So to make sure that it just makes sense for everyone involved ultimately. And so this slave and master differentiation doesn't seem to be right. There's also economic reasons why this leads to all types of misallocation of resources, but that's kind of a later part of the conclusion. And then the third way would be, well, either you or I own it, specifically whoever homesteaded it, right? Who raised the cow, right? Who butchered it? Who cooked the steak? That was intermingling your labor with scarce resources that were previously not owned, right? And therefore the person who did it gets it. And that is a property right, right? The right of how to allocate the scarce resource that can only be allocated in one place at one time in one way, right? And that is property rights based on homesteading. And this is one of the three options of how we can allocate those resources, and it's clearly the most defensible, right, from like common sense logic, but also from the consequences that arise out of that, right? Because obviously if nobody owns it, we all die, right? Because nobody gets to eat anything. If we have a priest class, then naturally all the capital will flow to them, and so we will have insanely rich slave masters and very poor and suffering slaves. Obviously not great. And so the third way is that whoever is productive gets to choose how to allocate the fruits of his labors in his continual quest of productivity. And this means that we reward those who create, and to some extent we punish those who don't, right? If you cannot raise your own meat and butcher it and cook it, then you will go hungry because you cannot go to your neighbor who did it correctly and just hit him until he gives you the steak. And
my mind is blown and it's reeling. What happens to ownership when, and this may not happen, but I think probably will, when AI takes scarcity away?
Then we live in a really great world, because we'll have abundance, right? Abundance is having scarce resources that can only be allocated for one specific task by one specific person at one specific time. But we have so many goods available that we simply don't care about it. Like
ownership. So ownership doesn't even become a
ownership
thing.
Is a solution to a problem of a conflict of allocating resources.
Of scarcity.
Yes.
Ownership is the solution to scarcity.
Yes.
So without scarcity, you don't need ownership.
One great example for this.
It's a bit communistic, mate.
It is, but it's a good type of communism. So, for example, I'm a communist of air here, right? There's air in this room.
Yes.
It's abundant, right? You can breathe as much as you want. We won't run out of it. I can breathe as much as you want. There is no real conflict over who gets to breathe this air in this room. It's abundant. Our atmosphere is amazing, right? Now let's go underwater on a scuba diving session, and we have one bottle of compressed air, right? And we're very far down, and it'll take us a long way to come up, and we have only so much air, and it's not enough for the both of us, right? Now all of a sudden we've reintroduced the unabundance. Like, air is abundant above water, it's very much not abundant below water, right? And as soon as it's not abundant and scarce, then we need to allocate the resources. And there needs to be a way that we figure it out, right? So in the scuba diving example, whoever packed it gets it. Maybe out of the goodness of your heart, you decide to sacrifice your own use of air and give it to someone else.
But it's still your property.
It's still your property.
Yeah, that's incredible. Oh my God, I'm so retarded sometimes. There's a lot of things that I wish I'd thought about a long time ago. But property is on the face value, it's such a boring subject, but actually it's
it's super
deeply interesting thing. And it's funny because economics is the same, and it's all wrapped up in the same, value transfer, property, all this kind of stuff. You'd never know as a young child that could be as deeply fascinating as it is.
Yeah.
But it is.
Yeah.
And they don't teach that. I mean, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to broach this subject with my kids, because I'm going to, and it's completely important, because it solves all. Kids have a real problem with property, don't they? It's it's a real issue for kids.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my stuff, or it's this, or kind of, and this is really helping me mediate. It's really helping me understand the best way to mediate these things.
Yeah. Like I started my economics career as a kid, right? And the main reason why I got interested in this was because I had to work, right? Work is a great teacher on a lot of aspects, specifically about, let's call it entrepreneurial logic, right? I wanted to understand, why do we have to work in the first place? Because it sucks, right? But
that's scarcity as well, right? That's the reason we have to work. Scarcity, and the reason, and work creates property.
Yeah.
Bloody hell,
and
mate.
work creates abundance, right? Like,
which cures property.
Yeah.
No.
Like the solution of how can we reach communism is really hard work.
Oh my God. I don't know. I've just reached the edge of my my sort of psychological aura, I think. You know how you've got this kind of bubble of knowledge? I'm sitting on the edge.
Yeah.
And my feet are dangling into chaos. I can feel it.
That's a great place to be in. That's where the fun starts.
It is where the fun starts. But in my case, it's where I just go. I look like I'm looking at the TV as a young child.
Yeah. No, but like that's the thing, man. So after I started working, I picked up like Keynesian bullshit economics books from the library, ultimately, right? And I didn't get it at all. It was so weird. It didn't make any sense. It was not useful, right? I came there with a problem of like, why do we work? How do I become a better entrepreneur, basically? None of that was discussed. So I kept looking and eventually found the Austrian school. And compared to the crap of Keynesianism and communism and that economic theory, it's so obvious. It's so naturally obvious that you don't need fancy words to describe it. You don't need crazy math formulas or whatever. You need like a paragraph of logic, basically.
Why are communistic ideas so prevalent though in the West? What's that all about? I mean, really, you have to think of it like that. You have to look at Western civilization in its current form and go, there's a lot of collectivist ideas absolutely in control.
Yeah. Well, propaganda, brainwashing, and mind control.
Yeah, but why?
Right?
Why?
Because the slave masters profit from it.
But how come they manage to profit from it? It's insane.
I mean, if the slave thinks that his current situation is just and good and proper, then why would he ever rebel, right? Or do anything about it?
Yeah, I'm thinking more about the motivation of the slave master.
I mean, he gets to keep the slaves. That's
great
great for him.
I don't think there's many of them compared to the other ones. It's a really weird.
That's why the psychology is so important, right? Like the today's slave masters are master psychologists, right? They might know nothing about economics, but they do know psychology deeply, deeply well, right? And how to like twist the mind into doing something that is anti-human and anti the person who does the actions, right? But there's thousands, tens of thousands of years of wisdom tradition built up on how to make sure that the king stays the king. Right? That is the number one concern of anyone in power, with power over others, of how do I make sure that the slaves don't rebel against me and kill me? Because they have every reason to.
It's the asymmetry of it, though, that doesn't seem sustainable. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that we often trend towards this arrangement of a small number of people in charge of masses of people. Just it seems illogical. There's this weird asymmetry, but it's obviously part of the human condition, isn't it? I don't know what. I mean, maybe we're evolving out of it. Maybe we are. Maybe this is a journey. Maybe these ideas of freedom, free market are this time. There's an evolutionary step there. I don't know. Is it possible, or is this just a merry-go-round that just keeps going round and round and round?
I think a lot of the old tricks still work very well, right? And technology has made new tricks work way better. Like I mean, you know, if the masters of propaganda would have today's technology available, right? Back in the days, you could make maybe a radio broadcast, right? And everyone had the same propaganda, and you know, people were probably talking about it and in their own club saying, you know, how this is BS or whatever. Nowadays, we can make tailor-made propaganda specialized for that one individual, where we have terabytes of data of what are his preferences, what are his weaknesses, how can we control him and manipulate him, right? And then on top of that, if there is anyone resisting, then we will catch that in our surveillance efforts, and we can exclude that person, call him a racist, anti-Semite terrorist, right? And single him out so that his influence of getting other people out of that propaganda will be tragically diminished.
I spoke to a guy a few months ago about AI, and he pointed out that probably in the not too distant future, like TikTok-like platforms, if not TikTok itself, will just be 100% AI-generated content in the moment, specifically for you. It'll be like, you know, you think social media is addictive now. You wait till in real time an AI is generating lifelike videos specifically for your brain, and pumping them out at you. And what kind of dystopia is that, man? That is unbelievable when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, but there is a chance that we use this tech for good. and we just need to put our freedom propaganda and ship it first. Maybe that's how we get everyone out of it.
No, I don't think it is, because I don't think people want that.
Yeah.
You have to want it. Like the way the algorithm works is on your attention is it spots what you like very, very quickly. And it could be a microsecond that you pause, that it's aha, and then it pulls that thread and then it goes for it. And if you're not interested in freedom, mate, there's no way they're going to show you freedom content. And I don't think many people are. I think it's 15-20% of the world at any one time, probably less.
Probably less.
Yeah. And I don't think that's going to change. And that's what makes me, I don't know. Like the dream would be, especially if you believe in freedom, is like, I want everyone to be free. And I think if you go down that path for a number of years, you realize, actually, whilst I still would like everyone to be free, I'm not fighting for that. I'm fighting for myself and my family. And probably right at the end, you're just fighting for yourself.
And some people just actually don't want it. So who are you to tell them what they would like? That's why I love the second realm and crypto anarchy so much, because we're not trying to force anyone to join us. Like, we're not trying to take down the old system and make it stop. Those systems can continue. We're not fighting against them. We're building something better that we think is better, right? Maybe you disagree, and that's totally fine. And sure, you can try to stop us, but we will continue building something that we prefer. And then we'll use it, right? And it seems to me that the value created, the capital accumulated in a free system will be so outrageously larger than whatever the slavery system can produce, that over enough time, it will be clear which system is more beneficial to more and more people. And then people will move at that point.
That was what first got me interested in the Free Cities movement. Is Titus was talking about something on a stage, and he said, we're going to build this thing, right? And if you like it, great, come. Yeah. If you don't. Yeah. And people kept saying opt in to me, opt in, and it really started making sense. Yeah. And I had a very funny conversation recently on this podcast where we were discussing the notion of free cities as thousands of competing jurisdictions, and the natural conclusion you draw from that is, sure, a free city can be anything. It's just that it's competing, right? So you can have a communist free city if you want. But what's going to happen is it's going to attract the people that want the free shit, and no one's going to go there, and it's going to collapse. And what free cities, if they really did evolve into a competing set of places, slowly but surely they would show what governance works best. They'd literally be a signal. Yeah. It's incredible, really. Yeah. And,
it's a little bit similar to what happened with cryptocurrencies, right? Like, Cypherpunks tried to build online money for decades, right? Satoshi figured something out that still works today, which is a miracle. But what he mainly figured out was that he started the age of anarchy in money. Where back in the day, it was outrageous to even think or contemplate that a private person could issue his own money, right? That would be ridiculous. Only the central bank can do that. It was highly restricted of who can start a new money. And if you were the one starting a new money, you got killed straight away, right? Even if you dare to, for example, use gold, right, like Gaddafi or whatever, straight to Gulag. Then after Satoshi, we've decreased the cost of creating a new money, like tragically. Like there's literally
there's
a website.
No cost to it now, is there?
There's a website where you, with a couple clicks and a nice, pretty user interface, can create a fork of Bitcoin that has whatever parameters you want. 2-minute block time, 5 megabyte blocks, and whatever 100 million tokens in total circulation, whatever, right? It's super easy to do. It's just code, and we can now do it not once, but 1 million times every day.
It's right? So cool.
So hardcore anarchy, free money in a free market in the production of new money. And that started a competition of money that is something that we've never seen before. And sure, Bitcoin is still to this day the best one that we found so far, right? And that's great. But the fact that there is competition will make sure that we will find a solution. Like, I'm not married to Bitcoin. People think that if Bitcoin fails for whatever reason, that was it. I don't think so at all, right? We finally are over the hump where individuals can anonymously even create a new money and design it however they see fit, and then publish it, and people on the market will choose it to use it or not.
Isn't it that the free market can only exist in a place where people aren't making decisions in a way? Not making decisions, but like a free market can't really occur in the world. There's always going to be some limitation, because to be human is to sort of meddle a little bit with the free market. Whereas online in code, without the human element, you get pure free market principles, don't you? Is that true?
Well, I guess free market is an absence of coercion, right? If you're, and I guess specifically if we want to pin down on one thing that makes a free market, it's the non-existence of monopolies, right? So a monopoly, according to Austrian economics, happens whenever someone can prevent a new market participant from providing a service.
Which is coercion, though.
It's coercion, exactly.
Yeah.
You can, at point of force, stop someone from doing a service because you need a license, right? Because you need to pay some taxes, right? Because you need to have special education or
but
whatever.
All those things are human interactions. Like, you can't do that in code, can you? If everyone is using, say, Bitcoin, if everyone's using the same software, you can try. You can introduce a bit of malicious code that does that, but it doesn't have an effect. It only has effect on your version of it.
Well, I mean, maybe one example for this is the cookie banner bullshit that the EU put upon us, right? That every website now has to declare that it's using something as basic as a cookie and annoy users with stupid pop-ups.
And you have to say yes
or
no or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So that is an intervention, a triangular intervention, where the state says to people, you can only have a website if you put up the stupid cookie banner, right? And if you don't, you go to jail.
Do you?
Probably, right? I mean, that's the thing.
I've got
right?
one of those. We're not in the EU, am I? But probably the same in UK. But
like, that's with any time where you're violating a state law. Ultimately, death is the consequence. Like, if you would consistently resist and say, no, I will not do a cookie number or cookie banner, whatever, then they come by your door and say, hey, you have to do this. And you say no. Then it's like, then we'll take you to jail. And when you still say no, then they will threaten to shoot you. And if you still say no, they will shoot you. Right? The ultimate tool of the state is death, always has been, and the threat of death is usually enough to get people to do what they want.
I was going to say, let's end it there. We've been talking for a very long time, Nate, and I would go on for another 5 hours, but I need to process some stuff, because you've really just helped me to discover a whole new avenue that I'm going to pursue. It's funny. I'm still in shock that there is once again another aspect of thought that I just didn't bother thinking about, which is weird when you think about it.
We're so great at ignoring stuff. Like, really deeply, we ignore so much of the sensory input that we get. And the same goes for ideas. I mean, there's too many ideas to ever contemplate, even partially, right?
I know what you mean. I feel like I'm entertaining too many at the moment. I need to go and lie down.
Yeah.
Let's end on a really positive note, mate. What is there let's go back to your book, because I think, and by the way, can I call this episode The Praxeology of Privacy? Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that's a really interesting set of words, and I think it would be interesting. People would see that and go, what the hell does that mean? I think it might draw people in. I'm not stealing it. I'm borrowing it. Like,
the good thing is, you can't steal ideas.
Yes.
And I published this book in the public domain. Like,
have you?
Yeah. Like, so that you can get the book on towardsliberty.com/pop. Will be in the show notes as well, I'm sure. And there is just all the chapters, all the PDFs, etc. Do whatever the fuck you want with it. I'm going to print it after some round of review. Already some people started printing the book. Great. But I want to make sure those ideas are at least not terribly wrong.
I know what you mean. It is scary, isn't it? Committing a bunch of, especially if you took a long time to come up with them. It's quite scary to commit them to a piece of paper or a tome, and then think, a year later, go, oh my God. At least if it's digital, you can kind of edit them a bit. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think certainly in its core, it's quite a bit like my John Locke experience. It's like it's with using extreme logic, I can prove that thing. So there is a limit. I mean, we're talking about if in order to disprove certain things, you need to enter some weird quantum realm of madness or whatever. And I don't think that people are going there, you know. But you're pretty sure you've got it cornered all right with praxeology of privacy.
Yeah. It's a really cool topic, and like I know there's a lot of Austrian economists listening to your show. I mean, there's a lot of other people as well, which is great. But especially the Austrian economists, it's such a shame that they don't get the cypherpunks. Like I don't know why.
Why do you say that though? What is it they don't get about the cypherpunk? I mean, cypherpunks tend to be Austrian economists, right?
Exactly. That's the thing. So many cypherpunks are Austrian economists, and a lot of them make quite big economic errors, but still there's way fewer Austrian economists that are actually cypherpunks. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. It might be that the Austrian economists are just a bit boomers.
No,
It's like a suit and tie event.
Cypherpunks are too edgy.
Yeah, they're a punk.
I think your average Austrian that I know, anyway, I mean, would see, someone with a hoodie at a computer. That's a cypherpunk.
Yeah.
Whereas an Austrian economist is like gliding around Vienna, who knows, spitting facts, and
Yeah. And so there are a lot of great Austrian economists that did get Bitcoin, etc. early on, right? Stefan Kinsella, Konrad Graf, etc. And so they did a tremendous benefit of getting Bitcoiners up to speed with what the economic facts underlying Bitcoin are. And so I just want to be part of that tradition to bridge that gap and to tell economists that maybe the thing. I had a really depressive period in my life when I deeply understood economics and the evils of inflation and intervention, and I could not see a way out of it. Right? That is unspeakably depressive of seeing how the world is systematically collapsing and not knowing how to fix it. And I feel like that is the mindset of most Austrian economists. Even Mises was like, yeah, we can try it with ideas, maybe if we talk about it enough, we can fix it. That's such a bullshit solution. I mean, obviously it's important, right? But that's not going to help us. They're just going to burn the books. And then to get out of that kind of depression, you need to have a golden future, an orange future to look forward to. Right? Something where you can see that, hey, actually, we have it in our power to fix this. Not just to stop the pain, but to make it work so incredibly well. Like the amount of capital that we can accumulate in this new world, in this new cyberspace, is outrageous. It's baffling. Like, look at Bitcoin, what we achieved in 15 years? I mean, damn. Like, it's now larger than most companies are. It's larger than most fiat currencies are. And it was just a bunch of dudes in hoodies on their laptop. That's insane, right? That is the most mind-blowing, actionable improvement in the human condition for thousands of years. And we just did it, right? And we did it knowing the underlying economic reasoning for why this is going to work and the theoretical and cryptological underpinnings of these are the cryptographic tools we can deploy to make sure that it becomes unfuckwithable, right? It will succeed to resist, right? The cost of resistance is now so low. In fact, resistance has become profitable. If you resisted fiat inflation in the last 10 years, you're a billionaire, right? So resistance is no longer just this dangerous thing that only weird people do, right? People that we shun from society. No, it's the people who resisted now have the treasury, the capital to build new nations ultimately. So this really is an incredible success, and Bitcoin is just the beginning, right? We have so much more that the cypherpunks can build for us, that especially if the cypherpunks understand just how deeply correct they are, right? We can give the cypherpunks, even as economists, we can give the cypherpunks even more wind in their sails by showing them how deeply correct and how foundationally solid they are, that they don't have to apologize for, hey, like, we're working on this new privacy technology, please don't put us in jail, right? No, but rather, hey, we're working on something that helps people express themselves to the fullest, right? That leads to them being able to calculate their allocation of resources, right? If we don't have perfect privacy, we have the same calculation problem as socialism had. We don't have adequate prices that tell us how much things are worth. In a state of surveillance, that is quite equivalent. Right? So we really have a massive theoretical underlying foundation that cypherpunks can build on top of and become even more radical. Right? Like, we're not radical enough. By far, we can go even harder. And I hope this book is part of saying thanks to the economists for what you did, and look at what the cypherpunks did, and it's perfectly in line. And likewise to the cypherpunks, like, keep going even harder.
Max, that was a beautiful monologue, mate. We've got to end it there. That's just perfect. Really, really thank you again. Appreciate it. You blew my mind last time. It took 4 hours. This time it only took 2 hours. So you must be getting better. But I really appreciate you. And I'm always thankful that whenever I send you a message, you just turn up and we sit down and have a conversation. I thanks for that. And I really hope other people can listen and go the same route, because that's why I do this. I want people to hear what I'm thinking, and because I'm learning it in real time, and my cogs are turning, and I'm really starting to understand a new level of stuff, and you're part of that journey, mate. So many thanks indeed, and yeah, thanks for coming over, and see you next time.
Thanks. No, I'm really looking forward to all of our conversations. I'm looking forward to the next one, which might be in the gulag, when they put you in jail for thought crime. I'll come visit. If I'm not locked up by that point.
You'll be locked up, mate. You'll be locked up before me.
Anyway, we'll have so much fun in the gulag.
We will.
We'll orange pill the captors. It'll be fun.
Great to talk to you anyway. Thank you very much.